How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You to think Sheep like No More. Get it. Truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. You to think.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts. Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. Bam, and there we go. Well, tonight I'm going to have a couple of guests come on tonight and talk about North Korea, Comey, and the whole situation with that. Although that's unfolding, I still want to let that somewhat progress. I think we're just rehashing stuff that we really already know about James Comey and him being a criminal with Hillary Clinton and the rest of them. But we do need to talk about North Korea. It's getting worse and worse all the time. And also about DACA. And I'm going to bring on Michael Cutler, who can say more about DACA and the reality of all this stuff than anybody. But I also want to talk about, towards the end of the show, I want to talk about the reality of what happens in the media when you say what they don't like. And let's get started with that right now. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. How'd you like that? That's my own little video that I put together using the people at Newsmax were nice enough to make that little image of the book in the light behind it. So that's pretty cool. But as I just want to bring up real quick before I call Scott Eulinger, the book debuted at number 5 on the Amazon bestseller list and it did really well over the past weekend. These things, the ratings go up and down until the actual day when it sells, and then when it ships, which would be December 12th. But I got to tell you, I actually, just so you know, for those people that are watching that are normal viewers of the show, I had called the editor because the book is still, it's gone through the edits. It's now at the point in this whole process where it gets formatted. And once it gets formatted, you can't change stuff in the book. But I did reach out to the publisher and the editor, and I said, listen, I've got to put a couple things in there in the acknowledgments and the dedication. And one of the things that I put in there, I'm going to go ahead and tell you about it. I know it's great to have surprises, but I gave special thanks to the CQRF and to everybody involved in that. So you're mentioned in the book. And that was something that I just added yesterday. I actually asked them if I could put that in there, and they said, yeah, we'll put that in there. So when you get it, I can either autograph it there, sign it, or whatever. We'll figure out a place, but you are a part of everything that we're doing. So why am I talking about that now? What you all did last week in pumping up this book online is exactly what the CQRF is all about. People got together. They put it out all over social media. They went and bought books in support of what we're doing, and it was amazing. The process was amazing. Even in that process, I was still able to get money into the GoFundMe account, and we're starting to see something grow here. I've been getting people reach out to me saying that they're noticing, this is people in the industry, that they're noticing that this show is growing and that the online numbers are growing. Just the sheer response that we had last week when I said something that they didn't like when I was hosting the Sean Hannity show, the Huffington Post, one other paper, and Media Matters, and the Washington Post all wrote stories that included me talking about the girl that got killed in Charlottesville and how I believe personal responsibility was a huge part of that bad decision for her to go down there and get involved with a group like Antifa. So we'll talk more about that. I gave a whole last Friday show was pretty much about that. So I'll talk a little bit more about that tonight, but I want to move on from that, although they're not moving on from it, and that's fine. They're going to keep me in the news. People are going to be interested and see what this is all about. We don't pull punches in this show. I'm not worried about sponsors because there's no sponsors to this show except for you, and we bring the truth. And if you can't talk about bad personal responsibility or bad decisions that people made, it doesn't matter who's on the other side. If there's Nazis on the other side, if communists are on the left, and it's not really a left or right. I'm not saying this is politics, but let's say that you got communists on this side and you got neo-Nazis on this side. There's no better choice in that. None. They're both deceptive. They're both liars. They both ultimately want oppression. They both want to have a world that's crafted the way they want it, not the way you want it. And ultimately, it doesn't matter what side you choose. They're both bad. It's just how do you get to bad through this group or that group. It doesn't matter. And when you march with them, self-responsibility. You just throw it right out the door. That's what happens. So we're going to discuss, Raymond, we're going to talk about the Category 5 hurricane that's coming towards Florida. I got some ideas that I want to put out there for people. And also, I I'll go to your questions if you have anything. I know I've been gone for a couple days, so hopefully everybody's coming back in to tune back in. All right, let's get started. I'm going to call Scott Ulinger. Stand by. And we're not going to do a Skype. We're just going to be able to look at this. Actually, why don't I go ahead and put I'm going to see if Michael Cutler wants to Skype in. But for now, why don't we do this? Just to promote the book a little bit more. Come on. Pop up there. There it is. We're going to put this over here. We are going to loop it. You guys get to see how this whole thing's done. Boom. Can't really read it on there. It's so bright. Yeah, it is what it is. It's on down there, too. Okay, so let me put this in. I'm going to call Scott Ulinger. Stand by. We're going to talk about criminal Comey and about North Korea.
Hello.
Hey, buddy, you're on. We're coming back on. Right there we are. Boom. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Okay, gotcha. I'm sure everybody can hear you, and let me put your picture up here because we're not going to do it on Skype tonight. So, although you did look like you got some major sun the other day, I got to turn this off. It's right now. Hold on a second here. I got so much going on. Let's see here. Boom, there it is, and I'll pull that right over. Yeah, I'll just get rid of this for now. How about that?
Yeah.
There you go. Scott Ulinger, ladies and gentlemen, former CIA station chief, naval officer, and all-around great guy, and somebody that had a sunburn when we were on Newsmax. At least it looked like you had a sunburn when we were on there the other day.
It may have been the lighting, or maybe it was my vacation in California. That might have been it. It was the wildfires in L.A. kind of burned me a little bit. No, that was I was out there before that.
So I want to talk to you about a couple things tonight. Let's start off with Kim Jong-un and North Korea. I know we talked about this on Newsmax on Monday. Well, I'm seeing – so I heard I cannot remember what this guy's name is. He's a Forbes contributor. I think he's Chinese. I'm not sure. Chinese or Korean. But I can't remember what his name is, and he's an economics guy, right? So, but he's talking about China and North Korea and the dynamics of all this, and then he's and a great guy. I'm not putting him down for this. I mean, a lot of people make this mistake. He then starts going off and talking about the reality of tactical nukes and why we shouldn't put tactical nukes at the border and this and that. And quite frankly, you know, I don't think he's in a place to tell anybody what tactics are best for this situation, but
right.
You know, they tested a hydrogen bomb. Even if they snuck that bomb and didn't put it on a rocket and just snuck it down to the demilitarized zone and set that thing off, they're going to kill a lot of people. Right,
exactly. So it's got to be. So I think that the announcement that came out, I think this morning, that Trump is willing to re-examine arms sales to South Korea and Japan is appropriate. And there's been, and I guess even some South Korean leaders, not the president, but I think some South Korean leaders were talking about bringing the U.S. tactical nukes back. And at this point, I think that's appropriate. It's not, it's not warlike. We're not talking about something like a preemptive strike, but that's something that's in our power to do. The nukes were there in 91, so we bring them back. I don't see anything. That seems to be a very logical thing, I mean, it's one thing we can do. That seems to be, that seems to make sense. Things like preemptive strikes and all, it's nice to talk about that, but I question whether we're gonna really do something like that.
Now, do you think that a military strike, is it going to actually do any? I mean, can we do it successfully?
Yeah, that's the big problem is that, for one thing, it seems to me, I mean, it would be, from a CI point of view, you probably wouldn't want to do it, but you'd have to consult with South Korea about this to some degree. Mm-hmm. And then you'd have to stage, aircraft carriers off the coast for continued strike operations. And those things combined with, basically, you're basically putting out a big sign saying, hey, we're prepping for war. And then that's going to put him on guard, and he's going to disperse his things. And now his technology is such that they even have some mobile launchers, which are difficult to find, like scud hunting in the '91 Gulf War was very difficult. And so, if you don't neutralize everything on one strike, then what's going to happen with the rest of it? The same thing, when they were talking about doing the same thing in Iran a couple of years ago, it's the same problem. If you do it, you best be sure to eliminate all of them, because then you're going to make it worse.
Right.
So that's a big problem, and that's why I'm not sure if that's really a viable option. Or put it this way, I think that we will wind up not doing that. I may think it's a good idea. You may think it's a good idea, but I get a feeling that it's not gonna come down to that. Either we're gonna up our sanctions, which there were some good articles written that said that an article I put out that comparing the effectiveness of Iranian sanctions to any potential sanctions on North Korea, that's the wrong example to consider. Mm-hmm. And they said that what you really need to look at is our record of sanctions against Iraq if you want to have an idea on how they work. And the bottom line is they were ineffective on Iraq, right? And then we had a war over it. So there was a very good writer, I think it was on the website 38 North, which is just a Korean website all about all this stuff. They're like better than the CIA when it comes to their photographic interpretation. But it's a good site that people should visit, 38 North. And the guy said that, like, really, sanctions, I mean, we got to do them. You got to give it the college try. You've got to do the best sanctions you can because you want to avoid war. You got to do the best sanctions you can, but that does not mean that they're necessarily going to succeed, but you've got to try. Right. But this is a good article saying that in actuality, the sanctions, they might not turn out to be effective, unfortunately. So this is a real conundrum. And what I had said on Newsmax, the thing that we need to consider, and look at the political cost, is you have to look at North Korea and Iran are absolutely linked arm in arm. They are together on everything. So when Obama released those billions of dollars, including like a pallet with $1.7 billion on it or whatever, it's like, why didn't you just divide it and send half of it to Pyongyang? Because that's where that money wound up.
Right.
Because the one thing that North Korea does not have is money. And, the Iranians have oil and they have money, and they're willing to contract out their nuclear development in Pyongyang because that way they can abide by the spirit of the great deal we signed with them, but not, in actuality follow that agreement. So they have the North Koreans do the dirty work for them in Pyongyang. I'm sure, red-eye flights between Tehran and Pyongyang are very active this time of year. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're doing. And so in this case, we have the President of the United States with this disastrous Iranian deal is basically directly endangering American security as we speak right now. Okay, potentially we get the problem of Iran. That's a problem that's not going away. But now we've got maybe an H-bomb exploded, and you could almost, directly attribute that to the previous President of the United States with his, propping up of the Iranian regime and indirect funding of North Korea.
But, Scott, at what point, listen, we can talk about the sanctions. Even Putin is saying that sanctions aren't going to work. All right, so that's pretty huge, okay? But at what point do we act? Because, like I said, I've said before, if somebody tells you they're going to punch you in the face, and you bargain with them and they say, nope, I'm still going to punch you in the face, at what point do you either run or you do the preemptive strike and you punch them right in the face, knock them out. I mean, like I just said a minute ago, they could bring this bomb to the border and blow it up and kill, millions of people. So why? Why wait until we're pulled in? Why wait until we're pulled in?
Right. Another thing that I agree with you in theory, but the problem is that I think when we get down to the facts and all is said and done, that is not going to happen. I'm not saying I don't want it to happen, but I don't believe it's going to happen because basically politicians, they don't want to take this kind of a risk. And I understand it's a very frightening risk to take, but for instance, there's other things we need to do absolutely is, for one thing, President Obama gutted missile defense. Mm-hmm. We need to start investing big time in missile defense because certainly if if the North Koreans wind up developing this stuff, they're going to share it with the Iranians. I mean, this is a major threat that we need to put some serious money into.
Right.
And, it was cut, and we need to, work on those interceptors they stationed at Vandenberg in California, which I visited in California, by the way, just to get the T-shirt, and up in Alaska. We need to really supplement that stuff. And of course, we also have the sea-based deterrent of the Aegis cruisers with the SM-3 missile, but that's only like a 50. They got like a 55% accuracy rate. Maybe another step we take. This would have to be secret. I wouldn't publicly reveal this, is the next time they try to launch, you try to shoot it down. I say try because it might not succeed.
And that would
so
look
you
really
do not
bad.
want to announce it in advance, because if you announce it in advance and you miss, then you're losing even more face and making the problem worse. So keep it quiet, and you just give orders. You're going to take that thing out. And then and then hopefully it's successful, and then you can say, we took it out.
Yeah. Now, there's a lot of, I'm looking on Twitter, and I didn't see on Facebook, but people on Twitter are saying, go for Iran, forget about North Korea right now. Other people are saying that there's no way North Korea is ever going to do anything with that bomb. What do you say about those two things?
Okay, there is another point of view. I like to keep an open mind, okay? There's another point of view that says that North Korea, their leadership is not crazy. If they were absolutely crazy, they wouldn't have survived since 1949 when they, basically established that state. So they're not absolutely crazy. And there's a certain amount of, saber rattling for domestic consumption, but they're not really going to make that move. With their ultimate goal, what they want is the United States to recognize them, and they want us to pull out of South Korea. Now you got to look at that. Now that's an interesting thing to look at. Now, Pat Buchanan just wrote an article today, and I was just looking at it, and it's interesting, and it's something you need to keep in perspective. He said, North Korea spends 25% of its gross domestic product on defense. 25%. That's why their people are eating grass, because they're working on these missiles.
Right.
Japan spends 1% on defense, and although I think that's increasing, and South Korea spends 2.5%. So what he's saying is, and there is something there, just like the way Trump called out NATO, is these guys need to get more skin in the game. Right. In other words, why is the United States, putting up the big cash, the big forces, when these are the guys who are like, we are their markets. In other words, they kind of owe us a little bit, like the way Trump used to say that, we need to be paid in oil and stuff. Well, there is something to be said for that. So, but he's questioning the validity of staying in Korea, and it's something to think about, but the problem is that you can't look at maybe we just slowly exit out of Korea. We say, okay, the re-Vietnamization of the Vietnam War, where Nixon said, okay, look, you guys, it's your bailiwick now. Maybe we do something like that, but the problem with that is how would that play with our allies? Because that might be interpreted, or would be interpreted, as the United States is knuckling under. Mm-hmm. So you got that problem. So at what point do you say, you know what? I don't care about appearances. We're going to try to kind of change our policy here a little bit, make them pay more for their own defense, reduce our troop presence, and see what happens. That is an approach. I don't know if that is the right approach at all, but we need to look at everything with fresh eyes, because there's so much at stake here. And of course, like I said, the preemptive strike, it sounds great. I don't think I'd be happy if I had a condo in downtown Seoul when the United States decided to do that. Right now, even the Japanese are planning, how are they going to evacuate the 60,000 Japanese citizens that are in South Korea? Or if I was in Seoul, I think I'd look at some beachfront property in the Philippines or something, because there's just nothing. The problem is that Americans especially are used to thinking that there's a good path and there's a bad path, but in this one there's no good path. It's a series of crappy options. Some are more crappy than others, and that's, I guess, what the people get paid big bucks, more than you and I do, and they're supposed to figure this out. And I hope that they are as well informed about this, the nuances, as we are. Right? And I think you have a lot of confidence in that, right?
None. Look, if that was the case, Scott, we wouldn't be sitting. You and I wouldn't be out of the government, and the government and everything would be taken care of. But it seems like
right.
It's not. It's look, World War II. After World War II, we did everything right. Everything changed. The DOD became politicized because they created the Secretary of Defense. The FBI took a lot longer. The CIA took a lot longer. But even the way the OSI operated in World War II was very effective.
OSS, right, exactly. It's not the same organization. Right?
And we have become so politicized that these agencies, the real thinkers, what they feel does not get through. I think a couple of years ago when they had, the Obama administration was forcing these people to write memos saying that ISIS was
right.
Was
They were
defeated.
forcing. That's right. They were forcing SOCOM to alter their intel reports because it wasn't what they wanted to hear. So it was like something out of Vietnam. It was awful, right?
Which makes you wonder about SOCOM. If SOCOM can be that easily affected. That's right. That is because that's the tier 1 asset. If they're that easily affected, that's freaking absolutely a nightmare.
Right. I know you're no fan of McMaster. Me, I got a bad feeling too.
Yeah.
You feel a little stronger than I do, but I've got a little bit of a bad feeling. However, I think if you look at McMaster's policy, if you look at McMaster's policy with Iran and you look at it through the North Korean lens, he is not looking any better. Because what I'm saying is by basically holding back on basically repealing or just chucking out the JCPOA with Iran, by McMaster's insisting on following that ridiculous and horrible agreement, he is empowering North Korea. So hopefully someone in the White House, not out like Sebastian Gorka or something, sees this and realizes that, there are some things that we're going down the wrong path on. And the Iranian thing, we cannot keep on continuing with that charade because it's affecting us worldwide because it's not just Iran. It's North Korea and every other bad guy that they decide they want to raise some cash by selling weapons to.
Right.
Because it's only going to get worse from here. I mean, the non-proliferation, there was a thing called the Non-Proliferation Act. I think it was in the early 90s. And, we've actually done the planet has actually done a pretty good job of making sure that not as many people have nukes. Like, in other words, in 1960, if you said, what's the world going to look like in 2020, everyone would have said, oh, well, like practically every country is going to have a nuke. And that it has not turned out that way because actually those agreements and like diplomacy, et cetera, work at keeping that in check fairly successfully. But what we're seeing in the last 5 years or so is it's all falling apart now. Like a lot of other things, it's that whole basically all nations agreeing we need to limit this stuff is falling apart because maybe we lack the will to enforce it anymore. Maybe we had the will before, or the West had the will. Now we don't. So it's like a cascading failure, as they used to say in the Navy, and so where are we going to wind up in 10 years? How many other countries are going to have nukes?
Right.
Besides North Korea and Iran. And of course, well, without a doubt, I'm telling you right now, Saudi Arabia has got the bomb because they funded the Pakistani bomb with the provision, because Pakistan doesn't have any money. Right. They funded the Pakistani bomb with the provision, oh, by the way, if we need one or two of those bad boys, we get them. And I'm sure the Pakistanis said, sure, no problem.
There's no
so they've already got the bomb.
To be honest with you, there's no telling who actually has them. I mean,
right. And the Turks are going to work on it because, right, I mean, you know this better than me. I mean, there's three basic groups, the Arabs, the Turks, and the Persians, and they all hate each other. And there's no way if one of them develops the bomb, the other two are going to stand by. So we already have the Arabs working on their version of the bomb.
Right.
And the Turks there's no question they probably started, and especially under Erdogan, believe me, they've started their, they've revivified their research program, and they're going to be working on have a bomb within 5 years too.
Yeah.
Just if nothing else, against the Iranian bomb. So, so what we do with one country, in this case, North Korea, that echoes down through the ages. We got to worry about how that's going to affect other countries as well, because if you whack the mole, you might whack the mole in North Korea. Hopefully that'll kill all of them, but they could pop up somewhere else as well.
Yeah. Listen, I got to cut it right there. I wanted to talk about James Comey, but maybe we can do that later this week. I mean, I got to go to Michael Cutler in just a second, but this stuff is developing about Comey, and I'm interested to get your take on it.
I mean, not looking very good. Right, exactly. Yeah, talk to Michael Cutler. He's excellent. So all right, great. Yeah, we can talk about that sometime during the week. Then
you got it. You got it. We'll dive into DACA now, but I can't thank you enough for coming on, Scott Eulinger. Look, I got your picture up here, your life-size picture up on the.
All right. You need to put a picture of my wife. My wife's looking good, so put my picture of my wife up there too.
All right, my brother.
Okay, take care, man.
Out.
All right, bye-bye.
All right, folks, there he was. That was Scott Eulinger, and he hung up. And let me pull his picture down here. I'm learning as I go along on how to do different things. So I'm going to call Michael Cutler. Stand by 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and play the soundbite here from my commercial, and then we'll go to the B block. So, all right, so here we go. Stand by. Let me figure out how I'm going to do this all at once. All right. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. There, as you can see, I got a lot going on, folks. We did it. I got the commercial in. I got the B block going, and now I got Michael Cutler on the phone all at one time. What's up, buddy?
I think I'm having a problem listening to you. Hang on 1 second.
You got it. Can you hear me?
Let's do it this way. I think I can do it better this way. Okay.
It doesn't matter on it doesn't matter on this end how you do it. We're going to be able to hear you.
Okay, good.
Next time I'm going to have you on Skype though, and I'll have you up on the TV behind me.
Absolutely, be delighted to do it. Thank you for having me on.
You got it. Let me just put your name up here so everybody knows who it is, and that is right there. Okay, so so you're going to go here in just a few minutes, and I want to I want to give you some time. To talk about a couple things with DACA. I don't think most people realize what DACA is. So if you could explain to everybody exactly what that is, first of all.
Okay. DACA is an acronym for Deferred Action Childhood Arrival. And what it was it was created by an executive order by Barack Obama. The courts have basically ruled it illegal. And, you know, what's so ironic was that a year or two before he did this for the so-called Dreamers, he was asked about, why don't you as president just sign a paper that says we're going to let these people stay here? And he said, look, as president, I don't write the laws. I'm charged with enforcing and administering the laws. And the law doesn't allow for that. And then about a year or two later, he goes to the Rose Garden. This was June of 2012, June 15, 2012. He stands in the Rose Garden and basically says, this is what we're doing. And his excuse, and it was a very lame excuse, was Congress has failed to act, so I'm acting. What exactly does that mean, Congress failed to act? Well, Congress did not pass the DREAM Act. The DREAM Act would have legalized every illegal alien in the United States who came illegally purportedly before their 16th birthday. Now, that's an issue, purportedly.
Yeah, because you pointed this out the other day on Newsmax, and very well so, is that there's no way to measure any of this stuff.
Right. So we're going to have to take their word. Now, remember, 800,000 illegal aliens, and possibly more, availed themselves of this program, so that meant there were no face-to-face interviews. There were just too many people to process. There were no field investigations, and as of June 15th, 2012, they could have been as old as 31 years of age. Now, today, 5 years later, we're talking about people who could be as old as 36 years of age. Now, when the president said Congress didn't act, it acted to vote down bad legislation. That's not a failure to act. But nevertheless, that was the mythology, and he kept saying it's about the kids, it's about the children. You know, it's one thing, Jonathan, if he said to the illegals, look, if you're 16 years old, if you're in high school, okay, if you're in college, come to an immigration office with your school ID, with your transcript, and we'll see if we can help you.
Right.
That would be one thing. But to turn around and say you could be as old as 31 years of age, as long as you apply and claim you came here before your 16th birthday, you're basically in. And at one point, the approval rate was greater than 95%. Now, what people don't understand, and my career with the INS spanned some 30 years, and I held a number of positions. I started my career as an immigration inspector at Kennedy Airport, did that for 4 years. And for one of those 4 years before I became a special agent, I took a 1-year assignment as an adjudications officer. I was doing the marriage interviews, but the process is the same. And what people don't realize is that an adjudications officer can dispose of a case in 15 minutes by approving it.
Mm-hmm.
No one's going to challenge it. You hit it with the approval stamp and the case goes away. If you deny an application for a benefit, now it becomes a major process because you have to anticipate that an attorney is going to appeal your decision. So to deny it, you have to then get sufficient evidence. You have to write an official denial, possibly request an outside investigation by an agent. And then you write a denial that has to go to the attorneys who work for the government to check for legal sufficiency. That process can take days or weeks. So if you're being pressured to meet a quota, let's say they say to you, Jonathan, we want you to look for the fraud because we know from the 9/11 Commission, which, by the way, I provided testimony to the Commission because I've arrested terrorists in my career. And the Commission said the aliens who commit fraud are a threat to national security. That was the key entry and embedding tactic for the terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
So they tell the adjudicator, you be careful not to approve anything that's fraudulent. However, you need to move, let's say, 12 applications per day. The only way you're going to meet that quota is if you approve the vast majority of applications that land on your desk. If you start to deny too many applications, I guarantee you there is no way on this earth that you're going to meet the quota. And believe me, they're being driven by a quota.
Right.
And up until the current administration, you had a guy who running U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, the division under which these adjudications officers operate, who told his people, you do everything in your power to get to yes. And when people protested, including members of management, they were moved out, their careers were short-circuited. The pressure was on, especially under Bush and especially under Obama, to approve everything and anything that landed on their desks. In fact, in 2005, I testified before Congress because President Bush took the money to hire 800 new agents for ICE and turned that to 143, cut 2,000 Border Patrol agents down to 210. I testified at the hearing, and in preparation, I looked at what Eduardo Aguirre had to say. And Aguirre was the first director of Citizenship and Immigration Services. He said his first priority was to clear up the backlog. Well, that means approve everything. His second priority, improve customer service. His third priority was enhance national security. And I said, who in the world would make national security the third priority? Turned out that first director of Citizenship and Immigration Services had been the president of the private bank of the Bank of America, the first bank to accept Mexican matricula cards against the best advice of the FBI. So the pressure has been on to approve everything. And the culture is still, I am concerned, very much in force. So you have 800,000 illegal aliens who entered the United States surreptitiously. Forget undocumented. They entered without inspection.
Mm-hmm.
They've been granted temporary lawful status. And remember, the term deferred means that we're putting it off.
Okay, so let me ask you this real quick. So if somebody, you know how that you talked about earlier about people showing up, if they would have said if you're in high school or whatever, show up.
Right.
Couldn't somebody show up that was 35 years old that had a diploma from the United States, and that would suffice?
Sure. And that's exactly what the concern was.
Well, why don't we do that now? Why don't we say, okay, if you have a document that says you went to high school here and the high school vouches for you, then we say, okay, we'll give you, where we can prove it, we'll go ahead and give you a green card.
Well, it doesn't work that way. First of all, there's no justification legally for doing that. If they're 35 years old, I mean, so understand what we're doing. You know, we have the most generous system in terms of immigration in the world.
Right.
We admit 1 million lawful immigrants every year. We admit tens of millions of temporary visitors every year. We have hundreds of thousands of foreign workers who are coming here and displacing Americans because there's no integrity to the process.
Right.
And so something else to consider. You know, we all experience this, unless you're fabulously wealthy. How many folks out there have sat around the table with their family and said, well, is this the year we buy a new car, or is this the year we go on vacation?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the schools in America are under extreme pressure. Literacy rates have fallen through the floorboards. In New York City, they were excited because the literacy rate was 40%. You know, when I went to high school, it was 90%, and people were upset that there were 10% who weren't meeting minimum literacy standards. Today, the literacy rate is 40% because you have so many kids in the New York City school system who do not live in families where English is even spoken at home.
Right.
The Congressional Budget Office 10 years ago did a study. And what did the study say? It costs 20 to 40% more to educate kids who can't speak, read, or write English.
Mm-hmm.
So we have kids with learning disabilities who desperately need something known as early intervention, especially kids with autism.
Now, let me ask
money has been taken away to be able to fund the English as a second language. So American children with learning disabilities are suffering the consequences of massive numbers of kids in school who can't speak English, and they're trying to get their English proficiency up to minimum standard. So, and this goes back to the money. Where do we get the money to hire all the teachers for ESL and fill the classrooms with quality teachers when so much effort is now being expended on English as a second language, and we're flooding the schools with these kids while American children are suffering and not getting what they need in the classroom? So as much as you want to help people, we also have to ask ourselves, do you give money to charity when your own children are going to bed hungry at night? I mean, there's so many issues. It's not clear-cut. We all feel sympathetic to the actual kid who came here as this program has been advertised. Their parents dragged them here. But there's another problem, too.
Go ahead.
You're incentivizing people bringing their kids through the desert, through very dangerous conditions.
Right.
Many kids don't survive.
Okay, so let me ask you this, and I know you got to go
I
here.
hope I'm making sense to you, Jonathan.
Yeah, you are. You definitely are. We got to keep these answers short because people get lost in all. You've got so much information that people get lost in it. So, tell the people this: what are the laws that are on the books right now that should just be enforced, and all this would be a no-brainer?
If you're here illegally, you need to go home. I mean,
it's very simple.
And you know, the kids that benefited from DACA, we go to hotels and they tell you, you make a 5-day reservation. When the 5 days is up, they slide the bill through the door and tell you checkout time is 12 noon. The kids who came here got the benefit of the ability to work, got the benefit of an education. Go back to your country with these acquired skills. Go to the embassies and consulates, apply to come back legally, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't bring the entire world here. Attorney General Sessions got it exactly right. When we tell you can't come in, it's not that you're a bad guy, it's that we're sold out.
Right.
Have you ever been on a flight that was overbooked? I mean, we have a limited amount of space in this country, the way you have a limited number of seats on a lifeboat, limited number of seats on airplanes. We have so many Americans who are unemployed right now and underemployed. What sense does it make to continue to flood the labor pool with ever more workers? And here's what I'm concerned about. If this then turns into a Congress saying, let's give amnesty to everybody. Reagan gave us that first disastrous amnesty. It was supposed to involve 1 million illegal aliens. By the time it was over with, it involved nearly 4 million. And what nobody ever talked about was how many of them then brought all their kids and all their spouses here. Because realize that if you legalize an illegal alien, as soon as that alien gets that lawful status, they could bring their families here. Many third world families have 6, 7, 8 children. How in the world would the United States cope with an influx of many millions of more kids attending our schools? Many millions more people getting on public transportation, requiring water, requiring fuel, requiring electricity. It's a cascade of demands on systems that can't deal with what they're dealing with now all across the country, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, whether it's infrastructure. And this isn't about being xenophobic. And our immigration laws make no distinction. And this is so important. We make no distinction about race, religion, or ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
The journalists who scream about Latino voters are bigots. Americans are Americans, and I don't care what your race, religion, or ethnicity is. I don't care if your last name is Rodriguez or Goldstein or Jackson. As Americans, we have common desires and common dreams. And a final thought, by the way, with all the talk about how the word alien is so terrible, do you know the A in Dreamers stands for alien miners? I find it remarkable that with all this talk about how terrible it is for those of us who say, look, let's secure the border, enforce the law, and be a country of law. If you use the word alien, this goes back to Carter, you're castigated as being a monster. But yet the word alien became palatable when they, the open borders folks, could link it to the American dream, because the A in Dreamers is alien miners. I mean, how hypocritical is that?
Yeah, it's crazy. But listen.
The world's gone nuts, Jonathan. But I'm glad you're covering this, and we've got to get the American people to understand that as much as we want to help the world, you know, I think of the beauty queens, these kids that come out there, you know, the gorgeous little girl in her dress, and she says, I want to end world poverty.
Right.
And everybody applauds. We all want to end world poverty. I've lost family members to cancer. I've often said I wish I had a magic wand so that when I drive by hospitals, I could wave it and send everybody home well. But we've got to look at reality. And reality sometimes doesn't allow us to do everything the way we want to do, the way we want to do it. It's time to put American children, especially American kids, living in poverty first. 1 in 4 American kids now lives below the poverty line. Why aren't we as focused on that as we are on poverty around the world?
Because we have too many communists in this country that they don't care about that stuff. They want to get to
and corporatists. And let's not forget the greedy.
They're all in the bed together.
They absolutely are. It's the perfect storm where all they want is an endless supply of cheap labor. You know, when they say the immigration system is broken, it's broken for the average American, but it's doing exactly what the corporations and the special interest groups want. Flooding America with an endless supply of cheap, exploitable labor. And you know, Jonathan, when you bring foreign workers from third world countries to America, they bring with them third world expectations of wages and working conditions. And that doesn't bode well for the average American worker.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, brother. Thank you very much. As always, we'll have you back on here.
Always happy to do it. Thanks so much. By the way, folks, please go to my website. It's michaelcutler.net. I also write for frontpagemag.com, capsweb.org, and the social contract. But if you go to michaelcutler.net, you'll be able to see all my writings. And thank you, Jonathan. Good to talk to you.
You got it, my friend. All right. Have a good night, and God bless.
You as well. Be well. Bye-bye.
All right, there you go, folks. Always has plenty to say about, he knows probably, I think there's more in his mind than anybody else I've ever talked to about immigration. Real quick, if you're on Facebook, don't be surprised if trolls show up here. I don't know if we got trolls tonight. You can let me know if we do. On Twitter, I can't help you there. I'm blocking these people as fast as I can. This Mile High Dad knucklehead, I blocked him, but I don't know, for some reason it's not taking a hold. But listen, here's the thing with these people. They're trolls. Don't worry about what they say after the show. I'll block them. You're better off not even arguing with these trolls. Let them type whatever they want, because this is the truth about social media, folks. I'm learning this lesson, is that social media, over 50% of the drive of social media is the reaction. So this person will say something, and your reaction drives that, and you have to just let that stuff go. Don't concern yourself. They'll go away, or they'll just be here all the time until I block them. But basically, just don't react to them. They have no voice. That's why they're on social media. Look, most of these people have 2 followers, but they're all a part of this whole communist thing. And many times it's like one geek with like 4 or 5 or 10 different handles. So it is what it is. Don't even bother about those people. Ignore them, block them, report them if they're saying stuff that's not right. And let's test Twitter and Facebook's policies and see if they'll get rid of these people. It's as simple as that. Have fun with it. And see, like, don't buy into this stuff and saying stuff back to this Mile High Dad. His sheer name is kind of weird anyway to begin with. But as soon as we get off here, I blocked him on here, but for some reason it's not showing up. So let's go to the C block, and I'm going to talk real quick about this weirdo reporter used to be with the New York Times, now with the Washington Post, and her little article that she wrote mentioned me, and it wasn't really about me, but it mentioned me in it. And of course, there's a lot of blowback from what I said last week that I explained at the beginning of this show, but I'm not really concerned with that blowback. But it's interesting. I will tell you this, folks. After I said that last week, I'm reading some of these comments. After I said that last week on Sean Hannity's radio show, the people that you get the blowback from, I don't really know how many people they actually are, because it could be, 10 people all saying this, with multiple accounts. I don't know exactly, but I do know that they all say the same thing. And that's because they are sheep to the Communist Party. And it's interesting how they act like, oh, you can't say that we're communists, but yet they turn around and spew communist nonsense. They run with groups that are communist groups. So, they're communists. I'm not really concerned about that. But this one article that this woman wrote, and her name is, let me pull it up here real quick. I posted it online so you guys could see it. She's with the Washington Post. Her name is Margaret Sullivan. Now, I started looking at her background, and pretty much she's communist. I mean, that's why she writes an article about Antifa, talking about here's the best thing media can do when reporting on Antifa. She's saying that basically, don't buy into the stuff that everybody else is saying, that they're communist, that they're mean, that they themselves are fascist. Just don't buy into it. And the way you report them is that, you basically report about the other people on the other side that they're protesting about, which is kind of strange because that one time they showed up with KKK people, disgusting scum of the earth KKK people, but most of the time they're just out there beating up people who were there for freedom of speech, period. So it was a good example. She wrote an article that mentioned what I had to say in there. And then there was another girl. Let me see if I can find where I tweeted back at her. Give me just a second. This was probably the most ridiculous one that I saw. Hold on one second now. Oh, here's the other thing. I've really found, man, I'm telling you, you go to the tweets and replies, and if your stuff doesn't pop up on the tweets, go and retweet your own thing, and then it'll pop up there because they're censoring us. Anytime you type in something negative about a reporter or about the New York Post or about any of these different outlets, the New York Times, any Media Matters, any of these other people, Mother Jones, what's going to happen is they are going to pop up. They're going to censor what you're saying. So let's see here. And then they accuse you of not knowing the reality of communism. Let's see here. Where was it? I may not be able to find it. Anyway. Not important. She is a reporter from the Huffington Post, and she wrote her entire story based on not what the audio portion of what Media Matters put up, but their little embellishment or their own opinion that they put in the article that they wrote. So they put up the soundbite, and then they'll write an article that goes with that soundbite. And in the article, they will put their opinion in there. And so she, from the Huffington Post, then writes an article based on the opinion of the Media Matters reporter, not what was actually in the audio blurb. You can't make this stuff up, folks. It's unbelievable. That's how unprofessional that they are. It reminds me when I was in the FBI and when the liberals got a hold of the DOJ, what happened was they we would send intelligence up the wire, and they would turn around and task us based on our own intelligence that we'd sent up to them. In other words, we were already running operations to give them information, and then they would end up trying to task us and tell us what to do when, in fact, we were already doing this. And that's what this reminds me of. I'm going to tell you what this woman's name was right now. It is Doha Medina. And obviously she is not enough of a host, or excuse me, of a reporter to even write her own articles, to do the research, listen to the audio, and then write a real a post on it. But of course, Media Matters, that's what they're known for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the portion, which again, they edit out the overall context which this was in. But I'm going to play this. It's nothing that I have never said on this show before. So let's play this. And this is from Sean Hannity's radio show last Thursday. And I was talking with, who was I talking with here? I'll look it up here in just a minute. Oh, I know where I can find it. Hold on. Wait 1 second, folks. I was talking with... I believe this is Paul Kanger who I'm talking with at this point. Or Dr. Ron Martinelli. No, I think it's Paul Kanger, who wrote a book, The Communist. Frank Marshall Davis, The Untold Story of Barack Obama's mentor. So let's listen to this. Yeah, I'm no fan of Linda Sarsour, as most people are not. I had a little run-in with a little friend of hers named Tamika Mallory on a radio show, who has to be, I would say, the most racist person I've ever met in my life, and just a pure propaganda person. And this is where Black Lives Matter and the Muslim Brotherhood have a connection through this Linda Sarsour and Tamika Mallory, and all these people are part of these organizers for like the Women's March, which people don't even realize what they're getting involved with when they attend these things. And this has nothing to do with the Muslim Brotherhood, but this girl that was killed in Charlottesville, who was ran over by a white supremacist, and there's a reason why I have purposely not talked about white supremacists today, because I'm wanting people to see the reality of how big this group of hate actually is, these communists, and how they spread all across these secretive groups where you can clearly see, and sorry for this little rant here, but you can clearly see the stupidity of white supremacists and neo-Nazis. They don't hide how stupid they are. This girl goes out and marches with Antifa and gets killed by one of these neo-Nazi people when she got hit by a car, but she was still marching with Antifa. And it drives me crazy when I see these marches and people have no idea who they're identifying with, and they don't even understand that, like, the Muslim Brotherhood or Black Lives Matter or any other communist or jihadist group, they're linked together.
Absolutely, and I think even more disturbing is how even in the Trump administration, we have some of these Muslim Brotherhood-tied individuals and organizations who are still influential and are still being sought. You know, I think of the Muslim Public Affairs Council, which was founded by an admitted disciple of Hassan al-Banna, the founder of the Muslim Brotherhood, they're just noxious people. They've defended Hezbollah killings of American soldiers. They've engaged in blood libels against Jewish people, and here they are, getting invited into the State Department. You know, under Obama, getting invited into the White House, and they're still there. That's the troubling thing, is they're still there.
Well, that's the thing I think that's troubling a lot of people. And Americans are standing behind President Trump, but I think there needs to be a reassessment by people. I would love it if the president would do this, if he would slow down, get together a group of people that are not from Washington, D.C. There are experts that aren't from Washington, D.C. There are experts that are not generals and deputy directors and all these political types. We're waiting. We're waiting for the president to call on us, put together a group, and then start picking these people out and getting rid of them.
Well, that would be nice. A lot of the people who were in the administration have been given the right foot of fellowship already. And, how we go about that now, the first wave, landed on Omaha Beach and they got wiped out. Right. And so I think now we need to, how exactly can we influence the administration to say, hey, this was a problem under Bill Clinton. This was a problem under George Bush. This was, accelerated exponentially under Obama. How do we begin to roll this back? Jonathan, I spend a lot of time in the Middle East, particularly in Egypt, where I've been researching the Brotherhood and talking with experts over there, and they're mystified. Right. At the influence of these organizations, and I'm talking about devout Muslims who are just mystified at how the Muslim Brotherhood is able to influence, and they know who they are over there.
Right.
They track these people too, and they're just like, how did this happen?
Okay, so anyway, you get the point there, folks. And what came out of that was an article by this not really a reporter. She's more of just somebody who writes down what other people write. And so she says, Sean Hannity's guest host took a diatribe on Charlottesville in a bizarre direction. The experts, hey, she gave the show a shout out. The experts, Jonathan Gilliam, took over Hannity on Thursday to discuss the current state of free speech in America. Gilliam was telling listeners that movements such as Black Lives Matter have connections to the Muslim Brotherhood before turning to the white nationalist rally 3 weeks ago in Charlottesville, Virginia. That's actually not what the rally was, but those people masked it. It was really about I don't know, I guess it was about the statues, but this stuff has gotten so screwed up to where 15 people will show up for freedom of speech, and then you got 20 people who show up there as quote-unquote white nationalists. I don't know exactly what that is. And then you'll have black separatists on the other side called Black Lives Matter that are standing with communist Antifa. So it's all over the place. And the whole point there is you should be very careful when you show up to these places, because you may be associating yourself with people that are very evil, nasty, scummy people. And even worse, if you have, like, let's say for some reason you're not a white supremacist, but yet you have white supremacist stuff up all over your Facebook page, that's already a hit against you. And then you go sit there and you march with these people, you're going to be looked at as a white supremacist, no matter how much hate is in your heart or not in your heart. Well, if you support Antifa on your Facebook page and so on and so forth, and then you go down to an area and there was a woman that was videotaping right when that car crashed. So she was in the area, and these people were threatening her, telling her to get out of there. They were clearly Antifa people. And if you march with them, it's the same bad judgment as somebody who would march on the other side and not leave when the neo-Nazis showed up. You either stand with them or you stand against them. And I stand against hate. I don't care what side it's on. And I also stand against people who want to subvert my country and my Constitution. I don't care if it's Nazi scumbags or if it's communist scumbags. To me, you're scumbags, and your groups should be outlawed because they are trying to subvert this country. And I don't think that the First Amendment protects people who take action to subvert our Constitution. And I think when they use fear, intimidation, and violence in the case for a political aim, that's called terrorism. They should be put on terrorist watch lists. And anybody that's involved in them, I don't care if it's a march or if they're going out beating people up, they should be arrested, and they should be shipped down to Guantanamo Bay and left there to rot. Period. So anyway, she goes on misquoting this thing and taking stuff out of context and not really giving the full editorial concept of what I was saying. And anyway, gross and disgusting skill set there that Doha Medina, just like the other woman I mentioned again a minute ago from the Washington Post, these individuals are not journalists. They are opinion writers, and they're communists. Most of them. Some of them are Muslims, and fundamental Muslims at that, but they will turn around and they will hate on people, and then groups like Facebook or Twitter or Google will then come and censor us because we're just pointing out the facts on these people. There's no hate in this heart, folks, except for people who want to subvert this country. and want to end freedom for anybody. I don't agree with that. If somebody hates another person, they should be free to say it. But as soon as they pick up a stick, or as soon as they go out and start marching and trying to recruit people, see, I think recruiting is another thing. If you're trying to recruit people to subvert the country, right? I'm not talking about you're pissed off at the government and you don't believe in DACA, or you're pissed off at the liberals, or you're pissed off at the way government has now become almost a giant monarchy of two kings and queens, the Democrat and the Republican parties. You should be able to do that. But when you strictly go out to try to subvert the country based on replacing it with another type of government, I don't agree with that. And I don't think that that should be protected by the First Amendment. That's the way I feel. And I think that if the more people started looking at it this way, they would start to see that there's a major problem going on here. All right, so why don't we do this? Let's go real quickly to the C block. I want to talk about this hurricane that's coming, and then we will go from there. Stand by. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. Well, I'm getting pretty good at that. I got my own little commercial now. So, 3 things I want to cover right quick. Make sure, if you have not pre-ordered this book, you should go get it. If you paid $15 for it last week, don't worry. If you got it from Amazon, they will still honor the price, because Amazon does this. I learned a lot about Amazon and the way they work and why they're hated by so many people, because Amazon will take a hit in profit in order to dominate a market. So if a book is doing well and they lower the costs, I get paid the same. It doesn't matter. And the same thing with the publisher. But Amazon will lower and lower and lower the price to get people to go there and buy the book, just so they corner the market. See, that's the way that they play. And so that's why so many other businesses can't stand them, because the other businesses aren't big enough to take a loss. But Amazon knows if they cut the cost in this so much that other people will go, or that those same people will go and then probably buy other books from Amazon, and that's typically what happens. So go pre-order it. Tell everybody else that they should go pre-order it, because what this book is all about is teaching you to target yourself, to build a target package on your life and the different sectors of your life, so that you can then figure out where your critical areas, the critical times for those areas are, what your vulnerabilities are, that these different bad guys, doesn't have to be a terrorist, it could be a stalker, it could be somebody, a purse snatcher, it could be whatever. You're going to start to understand the vulnerabilities that they can exploit to get to you. And then what are their avenues of approach? What is the attacker's avenue of approach? And you will start to learn and identify all this, because you will think like an attacker. We did an amazing job last week of pushing this out and everybody going to order books. If you've ordered books, get other people to get on board, because although I'm not making any money off of this until next year, what we're doing is building a platform of success. So again, the Constitutional Quick Reaction Force. This is the way we work. It's not all about me. If you have something as well, you need to let me know and we can put it out there. If somebody's bothering you, then you should go after them. Feel free to go look at these idiots like this Margaret, what's her name here on my, that wrote this article that's up here, supporting communism. Let's see, her name was Margaret Sullivan. Wait, what is it again? Let me pull it up here. Margaret Sullivan, and she is let's see if you can see this, New York Post writer. That's her. Go let her know that she's an idiot and she supports communism. You can read her article. I posted it, and it's sick, and she basically is just another communist supporter. Which what else would you figure from these liberal, these freaking liberal sites? So the other thing, GoFundMe page. Don't stop thinking about the GoFundMe page. I know I'm asking a lot of everybody. The book is $10. I still would like to see everybody that has not donated to donate $50. It helps me to get out on the road at a drop of a hat. It helps with the upkeep of the truck. I can go on and go on about this thing. Listen, this show is made possible through your donations. It's not a free show. I know people think I can get on here and do this stuff for free, but I've shown you before the amount of equipment and work that goes into this show. It's not just about the show. I mean, there's a ton of stuff going on here, and upkeep of all this stuff, booking the guests, doing all this stuff. Your funds go to this, and the more we can bring in from a one-time minimal fee, $50. If everybody did that together, either that or you go out and find 1,000 people to come and watch this show so we can pump it up and eventually take this on our own if we have to. Somebody says the show is dated wrong. Is today not the 5th? Says it's the 5th. Oh, it says 01 5th. Sorry. I don't know why that's the case. My fat fingers probably slipped. All right, we'll fix that. But anyway, regardless of that, don't worry about that. Let's talk real quick about the upcoming hurricane down in Florida, potentially coming to Florida, and what is going to be happening in Houston now. Houston now is at the point where everybody leaves and everybody forgets about it. And everybody thinks when the flood is happening and the rescues are where everything is great. And listen, having your life saved, that's great. But the real hell starts now when everything's dried up and they have no clothes, they have no money, their memorabilia is gone. People will lose relationships over this stuff. It happens because the stress is so bad. I'm sure people will lose jobs. People, if they're alcoholics, will start to drink. Right now is the time when the more people help each other out, you just build an entire feeling of community. That's the very important thing that's going on in Houston right now. Don't forget about Houston. And if you want to give to a charity, Samaritan's Purse, I think is probably according to my mom, is a really good one. And just be very careful who you're giving money to. If you can get down there and help, do. And I do plan on trying to get to Houston sometime soon to get down there and not just help out, but do the show and give people a voice and see what's going on. I've been seeing a lot of videos of cops doing extremely stupid things, like this idiot in Utah that jerked this nurse out of an emergency room and cuffed her and put her in the back of his car. That guy he just got released from his part-time job, fired as a paramedic. He should be fired from the police department. He should be charged with assault and violating her civil rights, and he should go to jail. And when he gets out of jail, what I said on somebody's post, I said he should go work at a library and shut that up, if you know what I'm saying. The other thing I saw was a video of one of these people showing up down there in the flood zone in Houston, one of these big old mud truck, big, huge monster trucks, and was sitting there, was helping people out. And this cop stopped him and asked him to come down from the truck and then yelled at the guy as though the guy was some kind of criminal. And I just, listen, I was in law enforcement. Hold on a second. Rico's trying to get up. Hold on. I can't leave him sitting there. Come over here. So I was in law enforcement, all right? You don't have to be a jerk to people. I don't care if this monster truck guy was out there and evidently, has no license on the truck, or of course he's not going to have a license on the truck. I don't care if your mayor and the boss told you to get these people off the road. This guy had people on the truck that were being shuffled out of the flood area, and this guy's going to yell at him and act like some kind of freaking jerk. I'm telling you, not not the only reason. I'd love to be a sheriff somewhere. I'd love to run for or become a chief of police somewhere. You know, if none of this media stuff works out, I'll probably go try to run for sheriff somewhere. One of the main reasons why I do that, so I could fire assholes like that guy. Sorry for the language, but let me tell you, there's no better description than that for that guy. And there's only so much that guys like myself can do in the media to convince people that law enforcement is not out there against their best interest. When idiots like these two people go and do this stuff, it's almost as bad as when they shoot somebody in a questionable shoot. This infuriates me, and it infuriates other people that watch this, most people that watch it, but it is a huge slap in the face to myself and other people that consistently put our butts on the line in the media to take up for these people. And I just, listen, if you're a cop and you see this nonsense, like the cops that were there and they saw, look, you don't have to be on the guy's department. Or you can be on his department. If somebody is grabbing a nurse like that or doing something stupid or hitting somebody when they're cuffed and you're a cop, take that person into custody. I don't care about this blue wall and the protection nonsense. You want to protect somebody, you know, being a cop's a hard job. And you may get into some knockdown, drag-out fights or arguments with people that are fighting with you. Okay, that's cool. Maybe you threw a punch and knocked a dude down on the ground, and he was fighting you back. And there was a video of a cop that was completely fighting with this guy. I mean, but the cop is from that community, and the guy was taunting him, and the cop threw down with him. That cop got fired and charged with all kinds of stuff. I don't think he should have. Myself, I'll be honest with you. The guy wanted to fight him. The cop laid his ass on the ground. That is what it is. And the guy later told the cop, "I'm glad that you did that. I needed it." Right? That guy gets charged. If you're a cop and you roll up and another cop is throwing somebody on the ground and doing something like that guy did, violating somebody's civil rights, take that guy into custody. Cuff him. Listen, and the rest of the department should support you. I'll stand by you. If you're working with somebody and they're a hothead, tell them, shut up. Stop treating people like that, because it reflects on us. And I'm just at my wit's end with these cops who think they are the good old boys, and this has been going on for a long time. I remember in Little Rock, Arkansas, when I was younger, we went to, they have a outdoor amphitheater there in Little Rock, and we went to go, me and my mom and my sisters went to go see somebody. I don't remember who it was, and we were down front and sitting on blankets, and this guy comes up and says, "You guys are going to have to move," and we're like, "Why would we have to move? We've been here. We already got our seats." And he goes, "I'm not going to tell you again." He flashes his badge. He says, "You got to move." So we were like, we moved. He made us, the kids even, move. And then he sat down there with his wife and their kid. And I'm telling you, folks, the man I am now, I would not have moved. He would have had to have shown me that there was a legal meaning for him to be there. Was he working? Why was his wife with him? Is there a crime going on? I'm not moving. And cops, seeing other cops do this stuff, you should put a stop to it. I mean, there's privileges to every job. Every single job, you got something that you maybe, get a discount here. You help somebody out there. Cops get to go through red lights a lot of the times because we're actually hunting and patrolling. But it doesn't mean that when you're a cop, you can just get in a car, drive 90 miles an hour, and go through every stoplight. And if you're a cop and you see other people doing that, let them know you don't appreciate it, and it's going to stop, because in this climate, in this day and age, it is going to affect not only other cops, but people who used to be cops, patriots who stand up for the cops all the time. And quite frankly, I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of it. We're going to release the CQRF on these people eventually. It pisses me off. Now, getting back to the flood stuff, with the upcoming flood, I want to give this a piece of advice to everybody. If you're in that area in Florida and this hurricane's coming at you, here's what I want you to do. Don't be one of these people that's stuck with nothing when you come back to your home. Get some great big garbage bags, double them up, put your stuff, your records, your clothes, your valuables, anything else. You got time, all right? Stick it in the first bag, roll it like flat, like this, and then bend it, and then twist it, and then tie that off with something. And then do that with the other bag. Roll it, pull it together, twist it like this, and then tie it off really tight with like a zip tie. And most likely that stuff will stay if you put it up on your bed. Tie it to to your bedpost, whatever, and at least you'll have a fighting chance with saving your stuff. It hurts me to see people coming back with nothing when you have time to prepare for this. So do what you can. If you can't take everything with you, there's one way for you to try to save it, okay? If you got to triple up on the bags, whatever, it doesn't matter. But I would do that. You can even do, okay, you take 2 bags, right? You do what I told you. Take it, spread it out like this, fold it down, and then push that together, twist it, and tie a rope around it. Line the other bag with a blanket or 2 blankets, and then do the other bag over that. Now what you have is a penetration barrier in case debris flies through there and actually hits that. Think smart. There's no reason for you to come back and have lost everything. You can waterproof a lot of this stuff. Annie says a friend of hers died in Texas. I'm sorry to hear that, Annie. God bless him. Yeah, there's going to be mass looting as well. All right. I think that's about it. And, man, the numbers were great tonight. They fell off. Big announcement. I forgot to tell you guys. Starting Wednesday. Wait, today's Tuesday. Starting Thursday, I'll announce it again tomorrow, okay? Starting Thursday, I'm going to start doing the show at 8 o'clock at night. I was even thinking about 7 o'clock. It's going to start getting darker earlier. I need to start working out more and getting in the bed earlier. And the 9 o'clock hour is just not working. 9 o'clock is too late. The numbers, as you can see, at 10 o'clock, 10:20, the numbers completely drop off. So I'm going to start doing the show. We'll try it at 8. Let's see how that goes. I was thinking about 7 o'clock, but I think 8 o'clock will work. And then let's try that for a while. Let's see how the numbers go. Right now, the numbers just drop off too much at 10 o'clock at night. So let me know what you think about that. We'll start that Thursday, and we'll go from there. Rico's down here, wants to say hello. Hold on. Come here, dog. Sorry. I just choked him. Say hi. Old dog. All right, you want to do the True Zone with me? Yeah? All right, let's go to the True Zone. Stand by. You talking? How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right, here we go. Ugh, sit up there. Yeah? He's a good dog, this one. Loyal. And that's what happens when an animal's free. They know where their food comes from, and they know who will take care of them. And if you work together and you're good, they'll last to be over 17 years old, like old Rico here. Sorry, I'm blocking your face there. There you go. Is that better? So we need to continue to stand together, folks. the CQRF and all the patriots in this country, and standing together and standing against these people. Listen, I'm not blaming you because I didn't advertise it, but after the show last Thursday on Hannity and after Friday's show, really particularly Saturday, I started getting inundated by these communists. And folks, they're real. Are we frozen? Are we back up now? That must have worked. Looks like we might be back up. Hey, check that out. Are we back up now? That must have worked. I'm smarter than the techs. Okay, Rico, come here. Let me guess. YouTube. Oh, it's back up. Okay. All right, we got it. Come here. Yeah, he's all right down there. Let's redo it. Let's start it over again for those people that didn't give up. I won't play the commercial again. I'll do that at the end. All right, let's just do the whole thing over. See what happens? There's just so much good looks when Rico comes up here. Between Rico and I, the system couldn't handle it. The matrix overloaded. Oh, those commies, they thought they had us, but they didn't have us. So here's the deal, folks. We got to stand together. We got to continue to organize. We got to continue to pump this show up. In December, the book will come out. Until then, we got to do every single thing we can do. If you know somebody that runs a radio station, get me on there. If you have contacts in media, get me on there. I don't care what show it is. When it comes to this book, we leave politics out. When it comes to this show, it's all fair game. People need to realize, I don't care if you're liberal or conservative, you need to read that book. And it's not the end-all be-all, but what the book is a way to empower you, a way to give you understanding, a way to give you... Did we lose it again? I'm going to keep talking. It's a way for you to gain awareness and understand how you can gain awareness. So that's what this is all about, folks. I need you to stand with me. You turn on the TV, you get a two-dimensional person talking about two-dimensional things that you're not going to be able to make a difference in by just sitting there and watching. You tune into this show, you literally have the opportunity to be a part of a movement here. We are not the revolution, we're the revolvolution. We're going back to the way it was, the Constitution. And I need everybody to stand with me and to stand with the Constitution. Those of you that have sworn an oath to the government, you have a duty to stand for the Constitution. You swore an oath to it, and that does not expire. Your oath is forever. And, the reality is, folks, you don't have to take an oath in official service to stand for the Constitution for your life. You're an American citizen. You're freeborn. you should have already taken an oath to this country. I can't tell you how deeply that is embedded in me, to the point where I will give my life if necessary for this country, but in official service or standing with other Americans, if it ever came down to it and we had to go to battle, I have no problem taking a life for this country, as long as it falls in the realms of legal war. You'll read about one encounter that I had in the book, but the book's really not about me. But I do give some stories in there about my life and the things that I've gone through. It's important that we stand together, folks. I could say it over and over and over again. We need to stand together. CQRF, the Constitutional Quick Reaction Force. Be ready. Always monitor your social media, and if somebody calls for help, let's get on it. Continue to stand together, continue to unite, continue to practice this, and eventually, folks, if things keep going the way it's going, we will have to stand together.